Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we will start with quote of the day, which is, "Indeed, what is come to you will be better for you than what has gone by." This is from the Holy Quran. And my name is Dr. Temia Ayub. Today I will be presenting on stroke. I am an FCPS trainee under the kind supervision of Professor Dr. Saira Afzal, Dean, Institute of Public Health. So these are the learning objectives of today's presentation. We will start with the definition of stroke and what are the types of stroke, followed by pathophysiology, risk factor, epidemiology, clinical manifestations, screening tools and their importance, stroke diagnosis, stroke management, recent advances, and at the end we will be doing MCQs. These are some of the learning outcomes of today's lecture. So, what is stroke? Stroke is a major cause of mortality and disability worldwide. In the 1970s, the World Health Organization defined stroke as a neurological deficit of cerebrovascular cause that persists beyond 24 hours or is interrupted by death within 24 hours. A stroke is a rapid loss of brain function due to disturbance in the blood supply to the brain. A stroke happens when blood flow to a part of the brain stops, and it is sometimes called a brain attack. So, this is the diagrammatic representation of the stroke. In number one, blood clot can form from arterial fibrillation during atrial fibrillation. Number two, blood clot travels in the bloodstream. Number three, clot blocks an artery in the brain, causing stroke. What are the types of stroke? First is the ischemic stroke, second is the hemorrhagic stroke, and sometimes there is a third type which is actually transient ischemic attacks, TIA, also referred to as mini strokes. This is the diagram showing the three types. First of all, we have thrombotic stroke, in which an area deprived of blood and blood clot or thrombus blocks flow of the blood. Then we have a embolic stroke, in which there is again an area of brain which is deprived of blood due to a fatty plaque or blood clot. Embolism breaks away and flows through the brain where it blocks an artery. And then we have the cerebral hemorrhage, in which there is a break in the blood vessel, aneurysm in the brain, leading to an area of bleeding. And again, some of the area of the brain is deprived of blood. So, what is ischemic stroke? The first type. Ischemic stroke is the most common form of stroke, accounting for around 85% of stroke. This type of stroke is caused by blockages or narrowing of the arteries that provide blood to the brain, resulting in ischemia, severely reduced blood flow. These blockages are often caused by blood clots. Clots can be caused by fatty deposits within the arteries called plaques. Now there is the second type, which is the hemorrhagic stroke. Hemorrhagic strokes are caused by arteries in the brain either leaking blood or bursting open. The ruptures can be caused by conditions such as hypertension, trauma, blood thinning medication, aneurysms, that is weakness in the blood vessels, etc. Again, we have a diagrammatic representation. We will move forward. So, types of hemorrhagic stroke. There are main two types: intracerebral hemorrhage, bleeding within the brain tissue, or subarachnoid hemorrhage, bleeding outside the brain tissue but still within the skull. Intracerebral hemorrhage, bleeding within the brain tissue due to arterial rupture. It can be caused by hypertension, which is the most common cause, cerebral amyloid angiopathy, trauma, or anticoagulant use. It has subtypes of intraparenchymal hemorrhage and intraventricular hemorrhage. Then we have subarachnoid hemorrhage, bleeding within the arachnoid mater and pia mater. Causes: ruptured aneurysm, which is the most common, arteriovenous malformations, or head trauma. Symptoms include sudden severe thunderclap headache, neck stiffness, nausea, vomiting, loss of consciousness in severe cases. Again, this is a CT scan showing how the strokes can look. You can see that 80% of the strokes are of ischemic type, which are represented in the middle, and on the right side we have the hemorrhagic stroke, and about 20% of the strokes are of the hemorrhagic type. So you can see in ischemic stroke, there is blackened area here, which is due to the loss of blood supply in that area, and in the hemorrhagic stroke, we have this area of bleeding. Transient ischemic attack. Transient ischemic attack is often called a mini stroke because it causes stroke like symptoms but without lasting damage. They are different from the aforementioned kind of stroke because the flow of blood to the brain is only briefly interrupted. TIAs are similar to ischemic strokes in that they are often caused by blood clots or other debris. TIAs should be regarded as medical emergencies. This is a temporary blockage of blood flow to the brain. Symptoms last less than 24 hours, usually minutes to hours. A warning sign for a future stroke. About 1 in 3 people who have TIA will have a stroke. Causes include atherosclerosis, plaque buildup in arteries, embolism, atrial fibrillation, and carotid artery disease. These are the four important causes of TIA: paroxysmal atrial fibrillation, patent foramen ovale, endocarditis, cervical arterial dissection, which can be painless. So, this is the scoring, which is estimate the risk of stroke after a suspected ischemic attack. So, if you have a low score, moderate score, or high score, so the risk is divided like this. And then we have the risk factor for which include age more than 60 years, blood pressure, high blood pressure of systolic greater than 140 millimeter of mercury or diastolic greater than 90 millimeter of mercury, clinical features of TIA, for example, unilateral weakness with or without speech impairments, and duration lasting 10 to 59 minutes or more than 60 minutes, and diabetes. These are the risk factor, and on the basis of this, we calculate the score. So again, we have a risk factor. We just went through that, but in this slide, we have some more risk factor mentioned, like gender. Male are more at risk than female. Asian are more at risk than European, and so on. Pathophysiology of stroke. Ischemic stroke, 87 or 80% of the cases are caused by thrombotic or embolic arterial blockage, leads to oxygen deprivation and neuronal death, just as we saw in the figure in the previous slides of the CT scan. Hemorrhagic stroke, about 13% of the cases caused by ruptured blood vessels, leads to intracranial bleeding and increased intracranial pressure. So now we have clinical manifestation, overview of the stroke symptoms, premonitory symptoms, including early warning signs like dizziness, speech disorder, exhaustion, weakness, tingling, burning, or numbness of the skin. Also, seizures turning into paralysis, thunderclap heading, and vomiting. These symptoms may indicate other illness and are not always diagnostic of a stroke, but they can be the warning signs, and more diagnosis and more tests might be needed. So this is again diagrammatic representation of cerebrovascular accident, and you can see that the patient is having headache, mental changes, aphasia, a respiratory problem, swallow reflexes decreased, agnosia, incontinence, seizures, hemiparesis or hemiplegia, hyperthermia, emotional lability, visual changes, vomiting, perceptual defects, hypertension, apraxia. Again, these are some of the signs and symptoms. So, how can we manage stroke? Management of stroke, again, we will be doing from public health perspective of primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention. So, in primary prevention, uh, the first of all, this is a diagram which can be shown that the lifestyle changes, including eating more vegetable and fruit, knowing about your weight and controlling it, go for regular medical checkups, taking prescribed medicines for hypertension, diabetes, and like this, avoiding tobacco and limiting alcohol, maintain a healthy lifestyle and a healthy weight, and regularly exercising for 30 minutes daily. These are some of the preventive strategies. Again, primary prevention focuses on reducing the risk of developing the stroke in the first place by promoting healthy lifestyle choices and addressing modifiable risk factor before hypertension and stroke can occur. So this is again some kind of repetition. So now we have secondary prevention, which is mainly focused on early diagnosis and prompt treatment. In early diagnosis, it involves clinical assessment and imaging techniques, in which we have neurological examination and NIH stroke scale and Glasgow Coma scale. Common symptoms, for example, facial drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, vision problems, dizziness, severe headaches, and so on. Stroke screening tools. So this is the first screening tool, which is known as FAST. The mnemonic is made up of facial droop, A for arm weakness, S for speech difficulty, and T for time to call emergency services. And the other screening tool is BFAST. It adds balance and eyesight issues for better early detection of stroke. Other scales such as LAPS, Los Angeles Pre-Hospital Stroke Screen, and CPSS, Cincinnati Pre-Hospital Stroke Scale, are also available. So this is a figure showing the BFAST scale, in which you can see that stands for balance, loss of balance or coordination, E for eye, changes in vision, F for drooping features on one side of the face, arms and legs, weakness in a limb, speech difficulties, speaking or understanding others, time calling 911 or emergency services right away. And then we have the Los Angeles Pre-Hospital Stroke Screen, and in which you can see that there is the screening criteria of age, history of seizure and or epilepsy, symptoms if lasted more than 12 hours, blood glucose level, previously bedridden or wheelchair bound, etc. And then we have examination, in which facial smile, grimace, grip, arm strength are included. Imaging technology which can help in diagnosis include CT scan, computer tomography, which has non-contrast CT scan is the most common initial imaging test to rule out hemorrhagic stroke, and then CT angiography helps visualize blood vessels and detect blockages, and CT perfusion can identify brain areas with reduced blood flow. Then we have MRI or magnetic resonance imaging, which is more sensitive for detecting early ischemic stroke and small infarcts. Diffusion weighted imaging can show stroke within minutes of onset. Angiography, MRA visualizes blood vessels abnormalities. Then we have Doppler ultrasound. Carotid Doppler assesses carotid artery stenosis, narrowing of arteries supplying the brain, useful in identifying atherosclerotic plaques. Cerebral angiography or arteriography, gold standard for identifying vascular abnormalities, aneurysm, or arteriovenous malformation, often used when mechanical thrombectomy is considered. Then we have some laboratory tests and biomarkers. With no direct blood tests diagnosing stroke, several blood tests help identify contributory factors. These can include blood sugar level, coagulation test like PT, INR, APTT, lipid profile for checking high cholesterol level, a stroke risk factor, inflammatory markers like CRP and ESR. They may indicate underlying conditions contributing to the stroke. Cardiac biomarkers, troponin and BNP. Stroke patients may have associated heart issues leading to such conditions. Then stroke is a medical emergency requiring immediate attention. Treatment depends on stroke type, onset time, and patient condition. And then we have several treatment options like aspirin, thrombolysis, RTPA within 3 hours, which can increase the chances of recovery, mechanical thrombectomy, blood pressure and blood sugar management, cerebrolysine, brain derived neurotrophic factors. Now we have treatment of hemorrhagic stroke, which mainly includes supportive care, blood pressure control, monitoring oxygen level and blood sugar level, stopping anticoagulant, reversal of blood thinners if possible, surgical intervention like craniotomy or minimally invasive surgery to remove bleeding, aneurysm clipping or coiling for subarachnoid hemorrhage, cranionectomy for severe strokes, and hemicranionectomy, removal of skull section to relieve pressure. In developed countries, there are stroke units, which are specialized hospital units which improve survival rates. Multidisciplinary teams are working there for providing monitoring of vital signs like BP, temperature, hydration, early mobilization and therapy, and preventing complications like infections and blood sores. Now we come to the third level of tertiary prevention, and which includes rehabilitation, which helps patient regain lost skills and improve quality of life. Again, these involve multidisciplinary team like neurologists, nurses, physiotherapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists, psychologists, social workers begins immediately after stroke for best results. Rehabilitation approaches for stroke include physical therapy, which improves strength, balance, and coordination, occupational therapy, which helps in regaining daily activities, speech therapy, assists in regaining languages and swallowing skills, cognitive therapy, aids in memory, problem solving, and attention recovery, and psychological support, which addresses post stroke depression and anxiety. Now we come to global and national burden. Global burden of stroke. According to WHO, annually 15 million people worldwide suffer a stroke. Of these, 5 million people die and another 5 million are left permanently disabled, placing a burden on family and community. Stroke is uncommon in people under 40 years. When it does occur, the main cause is high blood pressure. For every 10 people who die of stroke, 4 could have been saved if their blood pressure had been regulated. Among those aged under 65, two-fifths of the deaths from stroke are linked to smoking. Stroke also occurs in about 8% of children with sickle cell disease. Stroke is the leading cause of disability worldwide and the second leading cause of death, responsible for approximately 10% of the total deaths. Global Stroke Fact Sheet released in 2022 reveals that lifetime risk of developing a stroke has increased by 50% over the last 17 years. And now 1 in 4 people is estimated to have a stroke in their lifetime. Between 1990 and 2010, the annual incidence of the stroke decreased by approximately 10% in the developed world, but increased 10% in the developing world. Again, from 1990 to 2019, there has been 70% increase in stroke incidence, 40% increases in death, and 143% increase in disability adjusted life years. The most striking feature is that the bulk of global stroke burden, 86% of the deaths due to stroke and 89% of the deaths, occurs in lower and lower middle income countries. This proportionate burden experienced by lower and lower middle income countries has posed an unprecedented problem to the families with less resources. This is again the same information in the figure which I have just given. Now we come to the national burden of stroke. The World Health Organization estimates that stroke is responsible for about 9.7% of all deaths in Pakistan. This translates to roughly 141,432 deaths per year. The incidence of stroke is estimated to be around 250 per 100,000 people per year. The published stroke prevalence study from Karachi reports a 4.8% prevalence of stroke with a similar ratio in men and women, and 30% of all strokes have occurred at the age of 45 years or less. So again, this is the world ranking of Pakistan and total number of deaths and percentages for stroke. There is high prevalence of risk factor in Pakistan. Pakistan faces a high prevalence of established stroke risk factor, including hypertension, diabetes, and smoking. Younger age of onset. Studies indicate that strokes in Pakistan often occur at younger ages compared to Western and other countries. Limited acute stroke care. The availability of specialized stroke units and access to treatment like intravenous thrombolysis are limited, primarily due to financial constraints and shortage of trained healthcare professionals. There is need for public awareness. There is critical need to enhance public awareness about stroke symptoms and the importance of timely medical intervention to improve outcomes. So there is World Stroke Day, which is on October 29th, to be celebrated around the world to raise awareness and to make noise for the risk factors and the disabilities which can be caused by stroke. So, according to the recent advances, this is a study which is about addressing disparities in the global epidemiology of stroke. That stroke is the second leading cause of death and third leading cause of disability. Burden of stroke has grown rapidly in lower income and lower middle income countries, where epidemiological, socioeconomic, and demographic shift has increased the incidence of stroke and other non-communicable diseases. And even in high income countries, disparities in stroke epidemiology exist along racial, ethnic, socio-economic, and geographical lines. Stroke is a world leading cause of death and disability, and rates is increasing in lower and middle income countries. Risk factors have also been increased in like aged population, living standards, childhood and infectious disease mortality has fallen. There are critical resource gaps across all phases of stroke care delivery, including pre hospital care, inpatient services, and rehabilitation, increasing stroke related morbidity and mortality in the LMISCs. In high income countries, a stark disparity remain in stroke epidemiology and outcome along racial and ethnic geographies. Now we have a study about machine learning application in stroke medicine, advancement, challenges, and future perspective. So, this says that recently introduced machine learning algorithms have extensively employed in all fields of stroke medicine. Machine learning models have demonstrated remarkable accuracy in imaging analysis, diagnosing stroke subtypes, risk stratification, guiding medical treatment, and predicting patient prognosis. Despite tremendous potential of machine learning in stroke medicine, several challenges must still be addressed. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the study in which they saw how the machine learning was helpful, starting with data collection, diagnosis optimization, ML data processing, prognosis optimization, treatment optimization, and the data was collected and fed into the machine learning algorithms to give the best plans and optimized scenarios for making best use of the resources of the that particular hospital. And then we have the WHO strategic actions to reduce stroke mortality, including which is towards achieving sustainable developmental goal of 3, which aims to reduce premature mortality from major non-communicable diseases by 2030. It is essential that hypertension is diagnosed and managed through standardized treatment protocol and team-based care in primary care setting. Additionally, improving access to essential medicines and medical devices for individual diagnosed with hypertension is a critical objective in efforts to prevent stroke. Other modifiable risk factors, including tobacco use, unhealthy diet, large amount of salt and trans fats, and low amount of fruits and vegetable, air pollution, obesity, physical inactivity, diabetes, alcohol consumption, and socio-economic deprivation. Strokes are often sudden and life-threatening events, but they can be prevented and treated. This is again a study which was showing main deficiencies in stroke care in Pakistan. Particular unit emphasis was given on in rural and underserved areas, and it stressed that quick triage and treatment protocol and training of the paramedical staff in quick diagnosis of symptoms of stroke, along with collaboration with other partners, can improve the outcomes much in all the cases. So now we come to the multiple choice questions. MCQs. So we
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Dr. Temia. I have listened to your presentation.
yes,
Before going to MCQs, I want to give you the feedback
yes,
so
ma'am.
that you can add few important things.
Yes, ma'am.
Overall, it is a good presentation, and you have mentioned very important things, especially about the primary prevention, secondary prevention, and about the tertiary prevention. However, I must say that the few things that are missing and that should be added are about the blood clots that are very difficult to remove, and they are leading to cerebrovascular accidents. So there are important types, including reversible ischemic neurological deficit, that is called RIND, and the second is TIA, that is the transient ischemic attack. So the difference between the two is that the transient ischemic attack that is improved within 24 hours. So the REND, that is reversible ischemic neurological deficit, that improves within 1 week, and both have very important impact for the stroke to cause disability, and sometimes the repeated attacks may cause death and memory loss. So globally, as you have mentioned about the data, that over 25 years of age, the 1 in 4 adults have any type of stroke, including transient ischemic attack or RIND, in their lifetime, and that is a very big number.
Yes,
So it is very important to have the prevention, and for the prevention, important part that is missing from your presentation is about the M&D diet, because the most important part is that if you manage diet, you do exercise, lifestyle modifications, and the diets are particularly prescribed just like medicine for the stroke patients. So these diets should be added, and overall, it is a very good presentation.
thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Now we come to the multiple choice questions. So, number one, we have a 52-year-old man with a sedentary lifestyle, obesity, and poorly controlled hypertension visits a primary healthcare clinic for advice. The healthcare team wants to reduce his chance of stroke through a public health intervention targeting the community. Which of the following strategy would best represent primary prevention at the population level? A. Establishing community rehabilitation centers for stroke survivors. B. Organizing free CT scan camps for early stroke detection. C. Implementing a community wide blood pressure screening and lifestyle modification program. D. Providing long term anticoagulation therapy for patients with atrial fibrillation. Or E. Conducting follow up visits for individuals who already had a stroke.
C.
Yes. Yes, the answer is C, implementing a community wide blood pressure screening and lifestyle modification program. So now we have second MCQ. A 70-year-old patient with a history of stroke is being evaluated for sedentary prevention. What is the most effective measure? A. Vitamin supplementation. B. Long term bed rest. C. Antiplatelet therapy. D. Daily glucose monitoring. Or E. Herbal medicine.
C.
Yes, again it's C. Antiplatelet therapy. 60-year-old woman develops weakness on one side of the body and slurred speech. Her family delays taking her to the hospital as they lived in an area where no stroke unit was available. She arrived at a tertiary facility 12 hours after onset beyond the window for thrombolysis. From a public health system perspective, which measure would most effectively reduce such delays and improve stroke outcomes? A. Increasing the number of CT scanners in private hospital. B. Training community health workers and paramedics in early stroke recognition and referral using FAST or BFAST tools. Advising families to purchase home blood pressure monitors. D. Promoting traditional home remedies for mild neurological symptoms. Or E. Providing free hospital meals to admitted stroke patients.
B.
Yes, it's beta, training community health workers and paramedics in early stroke recognition. Fourth MCQ, a 60-year-old patient recovering from a recent ischemic stroke is found to have elevated cholesterol level during follow-up. Which class of medication should be prescribed for stroke prevention? Beta blockers, B calcium channel blockers, C statins, D antipsychotic, or E proton pump inhibitors.
C.
Yes, statins are one of the first drugs to be prescribed to decrease the cholesterol level and hypercholesterolemia in the blood. So now we have MCQ number 5. A 58-year-old woman reports that she suddenly experienced slurred speech, weakness on one side of her body, blurred vision while at work. Her symptoms completely resolved within 1 hour. She is concerned what this means for her health. Which of the following is an important features of her condition? A. Causes permanent brain damage. B. Lasts more than 24 hours. C. Can be ignored since symptoms resolve. D. Is a warning sign for future stroke. E. Usually caused by hemorrhage.
D.
Yes, it's D. It is a warning sign for future strokes. MCQ number 6. A 50-year-old man with a long history of hypertension and smoking visits the outpatient clinic for counseling on stroke prevention. He leads a sedentary lifestyle and eats a high sodium diet. His father died of stroke at age 60. Which preventive strategy would be most effective in reducing his risk of developing a stroke? Blood pressure control, herbal supplements, sedentary lifestyle, eating a high sugar diet, or avoiding water intake? Most effective for reducing stroke. So it's alpha, blood pressure control. Now we have 8th MCQ. Following a rise in stroke incidence among middle-aged adults, a district health department reviews its non-communicable control policy. They note that hypertension, diabetes, and smoking are the main contributing factors, and many patients fail to adhere to long-term treatment. Which policy level intervention would most effectively strengthen secondary prevention of stroke? Launching a national awareness campaign focusing only on stroke symptoms, establishing a follow-up registry and reminder system for high-risk patients to ensure continuity of care, following physiotherapy sessions for stroke survivors at district hospital, distributing pamphlet on low-salt diet in outpatient department, setting up a stroke research fund for tertiary hospitals.
D.
Yes, establishing a follow-up registry and reminder system, which it will help in the secondary prevention. A 62-year-old patient presents with sudden left-sided weakness and difficulty in speaking. A non-CT scan, non-contrast CT scan shows no hemorrhage. What is the next best step in management? Start aspirin and monitor. Administer IV thrombolysis with RTPA if within 4.5 hours. Perform an immediate carotid endarterectomy. Prescribe warfarin for anticoagulation or order a lumbar puncture.
A.
Uh, it's B. According to my key, administer IV thrombolysis with RTPA if within that specific time period. A 55-year-old hypertensive patient has a hemorrhagic stroke. What is the initial management priority? Rapid blood pressure control, immediate thrombolysis, start anticoagulation therapy, perform carotid endarterectomy, administer aspirin immediately.
B.
For I think for hemorrhagic stroke and hypertensive, we should first be controlling it's A, rapid blood pressure control. Yes. So this video will be uploaded on the YouTube channel of Institute of Public Health. And thank you very much for listening.